Stop for a second.
Hey, what are we doing?
Turn around.
What are we doing?
Homework assignment.
What kind of homework assignment?
Human sacrifice.
Hey, is that a gun? Please tell me that's not a gun.
Okay, so here to discuss the scene from Fight Club, we had two brave students who decided to tackle the investigation. So this scene out of Fight Club is a classic case of robbery. Okay, so what I wanted to do with this video here now is to look at this piece by piece and to be able to tear this down, diagram this thing, if you will, and to look inside the penal code at what exactly is going on here. So here in this scene from Fight Club, classic movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it, we have Brad Pitt pointing a gun at Raymond Hessel, who is the convenience store clerk here. They've got him out behind the convenience store. So he's got a gun pointed at the back of his head. Now, is he committing an offense right here without saying anything or without demanding any property? Yes, he is, right? He's committing aggravated assault, okay? When you're pointing a gun at someone, threatening them, it is aggravated assault. You could also go with deadly conduct here, but the threat or the assault would be aggravated assault, doing something like this. Of course, it develops into a robbery here. So the important thing about diagnosing a crime or investigating a crime scene, there are many different aspects to it. You've got first of all, you've got the CSI stuff, which is who did it, right? So if police showed up to investigate this crime, they would be trying to determine who did it by maybe taking fingerprints, DNA, that type of thing. Then you have the diagnosis of what they did, right? Which is the fundamentals of criminal law, the class that we're taking now. By what I mean by what means what crime did they commit? We can't just accuse people of doing bad things, okay? This is not Twitter or Facebook. We have to accuse them of specific elements of the offense. That's where we have to get in to diagram the actual offense. And that's what gets people so confused when it comes to trying to figure out whether or not you can charge somebody with a crime. Emotion doesn't come into play here. It's not going to help us at all. Throw that out the window, okay? We're looking at the elements of the offense. What did Brad Pitt do to Raymond Hessel? And where is it identified in the Texas Penal Code, okay? That's all we need to focus on. Nothing else matters. We don't look at, as far as these people are concerned here, they are stick figures. We don't care anything about them, and that's what I want you to understand. Stop thinking emotionally and start thinking technically and legally, and that will make you a good investigator, a good lawyer, whatever it is that you do in the criminal justice system. So let's tear this down case by case. So if we're talking about a theft here, now the theft that occurs here is actually when Brad Pitt keeps the license, the driver's license here that he's reading off there, and he obtains that license. Of course, Raymond Hessel doesn't give him that license voluntarily. He's giving it to him at gunpoint, right? And so that's what makes it robbery, theft by force or threat, okay? So if robbery is theft by force or threat, how do we know that? Well, so we look at the classifications of offenses here under the titles. Robbery is one of those things that it's right on the verge where it could be a crime against a person or a crime against property. Yes, you're taking property when you commit robbery, but you're also doing it in a forceful way directly against a person, right? You can't rob a house. You can't rob a store. You can only rob a person. What I mean by you can't rob a house or you can't rob a store, robbery of a store requires a person to be there. Otherwise, it's not robbery. It's burglary, right? So the person is necessary, which is why robbery could almost fit under crimes against persons here. But it does go under crimes against property or offenses against property under Title VII. So if you look there, we have arson, criminal mischief, property damage, robbery, burglary, criminal trespass, and theft, okay? So robbery, let's take a look at that. In the course of committing theft is what robbery is. So keep in mind, when you're looking at offenses like robbery, what's the first thing? If you're new to the penal code and you're saying, okay, in the course of committing theft means conduct that conduct that occurs in an attempt to commit during the commission or in the immediate flight after the attempt or commission of theft. Okay? And it defines what property is here: tangible or intangible property, including anything severed from land, or a document, including money that represents, embodies anything of value. Okay, a document. Would a driver's license fall into that? Yes. Is it tangible? Does it have value? Of course it does. Okay, so let's look at robbery here under the actual offense 2902. A person commits an offense if, in the course of committing theft as defined in Chapter 31 with intent to obtain or maintain control of the property, he does one of the following. So before we look at these following things here, let's take a look at, if you are new to the Penal Code and you don't know what theft is, now would be the time that you go to Chapter 31 and see what theft is, right? So that's what I wanted you to understand about this. It's what's called a lesser included offense, okay? The term lesser included offense means that with any crime, to include murder and robbery and sexual assault, you will likely have many other lesser included offenses that are included in that crime. To commit kidnapping, you also have to threaten someone, which is an assault, right? And you may drive faster than the speed limit on the way to the crime scene or leaving the crime scene. So you could commit dozens of offenses in the course of committing one crime. So the proper way to investigate a crime or to triage a crime scene is to investigate the crime by looking at the most serious offense committed during that particular sequence of events, right? So yes, Brad Pitt did commit theft here, right, by taking the driver's license, but that's not the most serious offense, because theft is just a misdemeanor, right? So we can look at theft down here under Chapter 31, and it is quite a long definition here because it's just got so many different things involved. But a theft under Chapter 31 is a person commits an offense if he unlawfully appropriates property with intent to deprive the owner of the property. Did Brad Pitt do that? Yes, he did. He took Raymond Hessel's driver's license and he didn't give it back. Told him he was keeping it, right? Did it without his consent. So he's committed a theft. What's going to elevate this to robbery is the fact that he's using force or threat against this person, okay? And so we understand what theft is, right? Unlawfully appropriates property with intent to deprive the owner. Did Brad Pitt do that? Yes. Okay. But theft doesn't have anything about force in here because that would elevate it to another crime. In fact, if there was no force or threat here, let's just say he took Raymond Hessel's driver's license off the counter while he wasn't looking, that would be theft. And then we would have to charge him based on the value of the driver's license, because that's what theft does. Theft charges are related directly to the value of the item that is stolen. That is not the case with robbery, right? So under theft, we would have to look here and we'd say, okay, it's a Class C misdemeanor if the value of the stolen property is less than $100. How do we value a driver's license? We probably have to value the fee that you have to pay to get it. And so it's probably going to be a Class C misdemeanor unless you look at maybe it's a government document. Maybe that makes it another type of crime, that type of thing. But generally, the value of the item is what grades theft. This would be a very minor offense if Brad Pitt did not use force or threat. That would be theft, but he does. So he's committing theft, but because he used force or threat, we have to go back up to robbery, and then we look at that. A person commits an offense if in the course of committing theft as defined in Chapter 31 and with intent to obtain and maintain control of property, he, number one, intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly causes bodily injury to another. Did Brad Pitt cause bodily injury to this guy? Well, no, he doesn't. Now, he scares the hell out of him, right? He's pointing a gun at the back of his head, but he didn't shoot him. He does tap him on the back of the head right there. You saw that. But is there bodily injury there? Likely not. Okay? So we can look at number two here, right? Let's look at number two. Intentionally or knowingly threatens or places another in fear of imminent bodily injury or death. Doesn't that fit better than causing bodily injury? Look at what he does here. Is he placed in fear? Look at this guy's face. He's got a gun to the back of his head. Of course he's in fear of imminent bodily injury or death. Brad Pitt has a cocked handgun to the back of his head. So there we have robbery, right? Now you say, wait a minute, we stop right there. It's robbery, 2902A2. Okay? Here's where you have to know a little bit more about the penal code. And you say, wow, just robbery, that's it? Man, he did use force or threat, but wow, that gun makes it really dangerous. Is there anything we can do to upgrade this offense? Well, robbery ends right here. An offense under this section is a felony of the second degree. But when we look under robbery, we also see aggravated robbery right here under 2903. It's, matter of fact, it's right here, the next offense over. So whenever you see an offense and then you see an aggravated version of that offense, and you're trying to figure out what happened at a crime scene or some scenario, look at both of them. Make sure that you're not missing the most serious charge or the most serious offense committed here by Brad Pitt. Clearly, he is threatening Raymond Hessel. He is taking property by force or threat, but he is using a deadly weapon, right? He is using a handgun to do that, and that is what is going to make this aggravated. So let's look at aggravated robbery. What it tells you here is a person commits an offense if he commits robbery as defined in 2902. Well, again, if you just start reading aggravated robbery, you say, okay, what is robbery? Well, robbery is this. And then you're saying, okay, well, if I have to understand robbery, I have to understand theft. Well, we already looked at theft. So you can see how theft, robbery, and then aggravated robbery are all committed during this sequence of events here. But to properly charge someone, you go with the highest offense that was committed by the actor during this one course of events. So a person commits robbery. A person commits an offense if he commits robbery as defined in 2902. Did he do that? Yes, we already established that. What did he do? He took property without permission of the owner. He did it by placing the person in imminent fear of bodily injury or death. What makes this aggravated? Notice the word and right here. And, very important, check out and. And means that a person commits robbery here, and in order for it to be aggravated robbery, he also has to do one of the following. Cause serious bodily injury? Nope, he didn't do that. Uses or exhibits a deadly weapon. Did Brad Pitt do that? Absolutely, he did right there. Okay? That's what makes this offense aggravated. So he's committing robbery, yes, theft by force or threat. But because he uses or exhibits a deadly weapon, that is what makes Brad Pitt guilty of aggravated robbery here. Okay? An offense under this section here is a felony of the first degree. Okay? So, remember, aggravated robbery has nothing to do with the value of the property. So long as the property has some type of tangible value and you take it without consent and you do it by force or threat and you do it by placing another in fear of serious bodily injury using or exhibiting a deadly weapon, you've committed aggravated robbery. There is all the elements of the offense, and that's how you do an investigation. Did he also commit theft? Did Brad Pitt commit theft during this? Yes. Did he also commit robbery? Yes. So why don't we charge him with theft, robbery, and aggravated robbery? Because they're called lesser included offenses, okay? And we don't stack the charges like that. So we charge with aggravated robbery. That's the best charge, and that is the best course of action. And the two students got it correct. And the only criticism I have is make sure that when you look at an offense, make sure that the aggravated version of that offense doesn't exist. Not all offenses have an aggravated version, but some do. Robbery does. So keep that in mind, and I'll talk to you guys.